Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology, and today we are going to take a look at all of the major astrological transits of the month of June as a way of previewing those talks that we will be doing throughout the month of June. So if you guys are new to my channel, at the beginning of the month, I will lay out all of the transits and give a few thoughts about each of them as we go through. But then as the month goes on, we will be unpacking each of the major transits on this list, or most of them, usually in an in-depth video where we explore the archetypal signature with more nuance and detail. So today, let's roll out the overview for June and see what is in store. Before we get into it, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Share your comments and your own reflections, or what you're anticipating, or what you're excited about, or maybe what you're worried about with the month ahead. Hopefully this will be a month of a lot of good news. I think that the transits are significantly easier this month than they have been in the past few. But whatever you have to share, drop it in the comment section. We love hearing from you guys. You can find a transcript of today's talk on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. As you guys know, classes start very soon. The new class, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, starts on June 11th. So it is coming up really quickly, and there's still time to register. If you go to the courses page, click on the first year course and scroll down, you will learn everything that the course has to offer. Again, it starts on June 11th. We meet on Sundays at noon Eastern time, and we meet 30 times on the year. Everything is recorded. So if you can't make the live webinars, you could take the class at your own pace and download everything and listen on your phone, or listen in your car while you're driving, or whatever you like to do with your the kind of podcast that you take in. You can treat this class in the same way. It can be as serious as you want it to be. There are many people who take the course and do every last piece of bonus material and breakout study sessions and take advantage of our tutoring staff and attend all the lectures and everything like that, because maybe they're focused on becoming a professional astrologer, while other people are taking it because they want to deepen their own spiritual exploration of astrology and maybe do some personal healing work as they go along. So it's really built to take care of whatever your intention may be. At the bottom of the course page, you will find the registration options. Early bird payment saves you $500 off. Use that and save a bunch. You can also spread your tuition out over 12 months with a payment plan if you prefer that. And then we also have tuition assistance. Need-based tuition assistance is offered on a limited basis, but we do have spots still available. So if you are interested and need a little help to make the program happen because you're on a limited budget, we get it. We don't think anyone should be priced out of studying a spiritual topic like astrology. We think astrology should be for people who are represented across all income levels and life situations. So we ask for you to reflect on your budget, and we work with you to find the price point that might work if you use the tuition assistance option. So no shame in taking advantage of that. That is what it is there for. And that is also why we do the fundraising that we do every year for this channel and the Kickstarter. That helps us to make sure that we don't have any kind of bottom line with the program. We can offer that to a certain amount of people, which is really cool. So if you have any questions about our program or registering or the need-based tuition, email us info@nightlightastrology.com. Okay, so let's take a look at the astrology of June. Now, there are major transits this month, as there are every month, but I will tell you this month is relatively quiet compared to, starting in March with Saturn entering Pisces and Pluto entering Aquarius, and then April with eclipses, and May with eclipses and Jupiter entering Taurus, and a huge T-square between Jupiter, Mars, and Pluto. This month is not fireworks like the past 3 months have been, and frankly, I think that's nice. It's not that there aren't any transits that won't be continuing to challenge us and help us develop and grow, but these transits are not at the same level that the past 3 months are. And so for most people, you might actually feel like this month you're getting a little bit of a breather. And I think that's the most promising thing, sort of generally speaking, given where we've been already. But there are lots of individual transits to go through. I'm going to go through them briefly. My buddy Alex Amorosi will be joining me to go through horoscopes this week as well, so stay tuned for those. But let's start off at the beginning of the month and we're just going to say a little bit about these, and then we'll be doing more on these as the month goes on. So at the beginning of the month, one of the transits that I really love is Venus in Cancer trining Neptune in Pisces. This comes through on June 2nd. Nice, smooth, watery connection between Venus in the sign of the moon and Neptune in the sign of the fish, the sign of Jupiter in Pisces. So this is you get the feeling of romantic and emotional connections being very positive and helpful. You get the feeling of healing and soothing and nurturing. You get the feeling of devotion behind this transit and those things that we love and how we care for the things that we love. It's interesting that the moon will be in Scorpio at the same time, maybe pointing to areas that need healing because there's some trauma in the past. This is a strong emotional moment with a little bit of a grand water trine being formed between the moon in the moon in here we go, the moon in Scorpio. So you're going to see all three of them coming together on the same day. So I like to think of that as a very powerful emotional day with a theme of healing and release from old wounds. Let's go ahead and move on. This is coming right as the full moon is also appearing, which takes place on June 3rd. Here you can see the full moon in Sagittarius. And with the sun opposite in the sign of Gemini, and with Mercury on June 4th, the very next day after the full moon, Mercury will conjoin Uranus. So the ruler of the sun conjoining with Uranus in the same sign as Jupiter. So you have, in other words, you have the rulers of the full moon, Mercury and Jupiter, co-present in Taurus with Uranus. So I get the feeling of middle ground being reached, or compromises and solutions to problems being arrived at. This is a moment, this full moon, that we arrive at meaningful synthesis around ideas and beliefs, doubts, worries, skepticisms, and addressing those things with meaningful answers. And also just the idea with Mercury and Uranus in the air of breakthroughs in our thinking, or breakthroughs to practical problems that we're dealing with, strategizing and moving forward. Finding excitement and enthusiasm is the job of a full moon in Jupiter's fiery sign of Sagittarius. And with Jupiter co-present with Mercury and Uranus in an earth sign, you get the feeling that there's enthusiasm, but there's practical resources available at the same time that can, so that enthusiasm isn't just fire spouting off, that there's something substantive behind this full moon that can actually get a lot of things done practically. When it comes to the world of earth and form. A lot of the times fire exists on the level of enthusiasm, passion, will, and vision, but it has to translate into the raw materials of life. And it's nice to see that we have this nice little stellium of planets with Mercury coming together with Uranus in Taurus, an earth sign. Now on June 5th, Venus will enter Leo. I think this is worth mentioning because Venus and Mars will now be co-present in the sign of the Lion. So you get a kind of dramatic, regal king and queen energy coming together, working together. Venus, of course, by late July will be retrograde in Leo. So we're also reaching Venus's maximum elongation space, in June, or maybe late May where it reaches the elongation. But it's starting to slow down, and it's bright as an evening star. And that place of Leo in the birth chart is about to undergo a pretty significant change. Now that change could be made in terms of relationships and love, aesthetics, beauty, and style. But there's also a working out of sexual tensions or tensions between the masculine and feminine that are going to start to happen as these two planets are now co-present in Leo, and Venus will eventually go retrograde. Now on June 11th, and there's some other drama with Venus we'll get into in a little bit, but June 11th, we go forward just a little bit, Mercury will trine Pluto. Now, I find this really interesting because, I got to go back some hours so that I can actually, here, it's going to be, what's so interesting about this is look at where the actual trine occurs. It is at 29:59. It doesn't get more anaretic than that, meaning the very last minute of the very last degree of these two earth signs. When Mercury trines Pluto, you usually think of very powerful, deep communication, thoughts and ideas, philosophy, and mental breakthroughs where the power of something that's been hidden or existing, maybe a little pent up beneath the surface, comes erupting through. It has a kind of volcanic feeling behind it. And this is a trine, so it's volcanic but constructive thoughts coming up from the unconscious to do something powerful, effective, practical, useful, and beneficial with the trine energy. So I love that energy. But it could also be like has a history behind it. It's a kind of cumulative effect behind this trine because they're at 2959 each. On June 11th, Venus has one of the biggest transits of the summer, which is Venus's square to Jupiter in Venus's sign. So Venus is Jupiter's host and is now in a square. So this comes through on June 11th. You can see the square between Venus and Jupiter there. The North Node is sort of there in the mix as well. And here you get the feeling of opulence and beauty and sort of grandeur and attractiveness and charm and good fortune. Sometimes things get a little over the top. It can be excessive in different ways. It's excessively indulgent, or to spend too much, or to put on too much makeup or something like that. But you get the feeling here of something that is beautiful and big and wonderful and fortunate and attractive. And I love that energy. And Venus will be revisiting it through her retrograde later in the summer. Now, Mercury will then square Saturn on June 15th. This is a little heavier. You got Mercury in its own domicile in a light air sign, squaring Saturn in the fall of Mercury, right? A kind of heavier water sign. So I wonder here what kinds of mental and emotional conflicts we are dealing with. What kind of mental, emotional blocks are we working through? The topic of mental and emotional health could be very important around this time, as well as just working more seriously with our thoughts, that there's serious thoughts and serious conversations that are being had, maybe with an element of emotionality and, how rational should we be, or how much should we surrender of the rational mind. And the same themes are actually present in the new moon in Gemini. So if you look at the new moon in Gemini, what's so fantastic about this new moon is that it's square to Neptune in Pisces. So the exact same kind of rational versus emotional, magical, intuitive, instinctual, kind of otherworldly qualities, glamorous qualities of Neptune versus the more cerebral, mental, intellectual, communicative, philosophical qualities of Gemini. And you put those two things together, the possibility of synthesizing to create something magical and intelligent, intuitive, emotional, and also articulate and thoughtful and clever is there. So there's always a possibility for these themes to synthesize. You also have the potential for a more of a tension between what is airy and maybe a little bit more mental or rational, and what is emotional, intuitive, imaginative, etc. Now, the fantasy of these two placements could also be about the idea and the plan and the intelligence to enact something that we're imagining or dreaming about, some fantasy or longing that we have. So where the mind and fantasy come together or split off from one another. I think these are some themes that will be present in the entirety of the next moon cycle because of that new moon in Gemini square to Neptune, which you can see coming through on the 18th at the same time the sun squares Neptune. Then June 19th, this is an interesting transit. On June 19th, we'll have Jupiter sextiling Saturn. But the reason I like this so much is that Saturn is in Jupiter's sign and is therefore communicating through the sextile, which is of the nature of Venus, so harmonious with its host Jupiter. Earth and water. You get the idea of building things based on enduring, deep, emotionally informed values. You get the idea of the old and the young working together, of tradition and youth, of innovation and tradition. You get kind of like the energy of the melancholic along with the bright, youthful qualities of spring. When those things come together, I think, for example, of, a poet like Thoreau, living on Walden Pond or whatever, like the idea of something that is, there's a gravitas and a depth and, the idea of nature and solitude and, sort of timeless, deep, big, vast qualities of mysticism and emotion and poetry with Saturn and Pisces. But you're kind of marrying that also to the natural, lush, abundant qualities of Jupiter and Taurus. So I just think this sextile is really unique and will give us some constructive things to build on that are not just sort of, Jupiter and Taurus, for example, might be like build a nice house. Jupiter in Taurus with Saturn in Pisces could be like, build a nice house with a beautiful natural sanctuary in the backyard that allows you to connect with the gods or something, like build a church or build a temple or something like that. It adds something to it that's pretty unique, adds to the building, practical, abundant qualities of Jupiter and Taurus, some mystical and emotional depth. So anyway, I love that transit. On the 21st, of course, if you're in the southern hemisphere, the summer solstice is the winter solstice. But either way, we reach a solstice turning point, and that turning point can be something to pay attention to. In the northern hemisphere, in the tradition of ancient astrology, we celebrate the beginning of the return of darkness, as well as the descent of the soul into matter. Cancer being the gateway of the gateway of mankind, the beginning of the soul's descent from spirit into form, into body, and the manifest cosmos coming into being through the gateway of Cancer, which was also the ascendant ruler of the Thema Mundi, which is the chart of the world in ancient astrology. So a really important turning point to mark ritualistically. We might talk a little bit more about its meaning as the month goes on. June 25th, you get Mercury square Neptune. And again, some of those same themes are present, the rational versus emotional. Mercury and Neptune can classically lose touch with boundaries and gossip or say things it shouldn't, or, there can be sort of porous, and it can lack some kind of lack the right container or grounding. On the other hand, I get really sick of that interpretation sometimes, because Mercury Neptune in this case could also just mean that there is a non-ordinary way of thinking, feeling, seeing, perceiving, communicating through synchronicities, through little slips of the tongue, or through the dream images that are coming up, or through active imagination, or through the appearance of symbols and omens, or the tarot. Mercury Neptune is a lot like just as a whole, it's like the subject of divination itself is very Mercury Neptune. And so I think the mystical, the magical, the non-ordinary, meeting the philosophical, the spiritual, those are the kinds of themes on the positive that we could see popping up, among other things. We'll be visiting that transit too in a video. Finally, on the 26th, maybe the most powerful and explosive transit of the month, a little bit on the more challenging side of things, and that is going to be Mars squaring Uranus. Now, thankfully, Venus is pretty close to a conjunction with Mars. So there's the bonifying presence of Venus in Leo, co-present. But Mars-Uranus can be very explosive, sudden, and violent. It can be confrontational, and it can fly off the handle in erratic expressions of rage or anger. So it's not necessarily the world's easiest transit, and it can be about bravado and sudden. It's a little bit like the tarot, the Tower card in the tarot, a little sudden lightning bolt that strikes down and destroys your plans. So this is expect the unexpected. This is not the kind of energy you want when you're you don't want to be driving too fast or getting into it with people who have road rage. This can be a very erratic and destructive kind of combination. However, it can also be the kind of transit that leads to a dramatic, sudden shift of energy, along with exertion and assertiveness that allows you to create an opening, a breakthrough, a possibility, a moment of success, a moment of victory. So the same exact themes of risk-taking, courage, and personal breakthroughs that involve acts of defiance, or personally overcoming a limitation. Those are all indicated by Mars square Uranus as well. But you have to be careful, because that one can be a little bit like shaking up a soda can and then opening it and it just sprays everywhere like that. That's a little bit like Mars Uranus. So we will watch all of these things as the month goes on. We will explore them together. I look forward to that. And I also look forward to looking at a few of these transits in our horoscopes with Alex this week. Stay tuned for that. Don't forget, before you leave, to like and subscribe, share your comments and thoughts. If you have a transit story to share, use the hashtag grabbed and tell us your story, or send us an email, grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. Have another episode in the Grabbed series coming out soon. You can find a transcript of today's talk on the website, nightlightastrology.com, where you can also register for our new course, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, which starts on Sundays, June 11th. Really looking forward to a new group of students starting up in the program. If you have any questions about anything, email us info@nightlightastrology.com. All right, that's it for today. And I hope you guys have a great start to your month of June. Bye, everyone.